Dr. Stella Nyanzi Quarreling with the late Kokundeka, who died 10 years ago. The late Stella Kokundeka died 10 years ago. Now Nyanzi is busy quarreling with the late Kokundeka, who is dead, not here to defend herself. Doesn't know what Nyanzi is talking about, and insisting that she's done it in order to offend the president. Now what injustice is this? Nyanzi, in her own words, has said, yes, I did it in order to offend the president. Now what injustice is this? Maybe you should say that when somebody quarrels with somebody who is dead, then that person needs a bit of shrinking, head shrinking. Because otherwise, what if it's not a mental illness, what can it be? How do you quarrel with somebody who has died, who's been dead for the last 10 or so years? As for the stripping of Dr. Stella Nyanzi, I'm getting persuaded that I don't want to pronounce myself because I'm not a medical doctor. But what I know is that Baganda women are very, 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 very modest about their breasts. Women in Uganda are very modest about their breasts. Even when they were wearing back clothes, it would come up to the breast level and they would not expose their breasts. Baganda women are very careful about their utterances. Now when you see a Muganda lady who has mature children behaving like the way Nyanzi is behaving, I think it's time for second thoughts. Whether Nyanzi is actually okay. Because a Muganda lady bearing her breasts is... those of you from Buganda, what do you think about it? Because I've been in Uganda for a long time, I know how Buganda women behave. And other groups, but in Uganda in particular. So when you see this kind of behavior, I don't want to speculate, but I think some further action should be done to investigate her real problem. As to whether we should take action against her, I think I leave that to those who are responsible for ethics and integrity. If she offended the court, Dr. Stella Nyanzi, on her own volition, accepted responsibility. While these fellows were fighting, Nyanzi, in her own words, admitted responsibility for the offending the law and was actually demanding that she should be punished even harder. If the accused pleads guilty, if the accused pleads guilty, what do you do?
I don't.
The accused has pleaded guilty and has said, even the other charge, which we are talking about, don't leave it out. So what do you expect the judge, the presiding magistrate, to do when the law is offended? The magistrate is not at liberty to say Nyanzi is innocent, except in circumstances of diminished responsibility. Nyanzi can be discharged in circumstances of diminished responsibility, meaning if she's found crazy, if she's mad, the magistrate will say, oh, she was not responsible for her utterances. But for as long as Nyanzi has not been declared mad, she's responsible for her plea of guilt. And the law stipulates the sentence you get when you offend it. So what do they want the magistrate to do? Were they in her shoes, what would they have done? Kamasanyu was not acting, was not attending a wedding. She was performing a judicial function. She was performing a judicial function. And people who had no business in adjudicating the matter, decided to attack her, who had no business. They were only licensed to sit in court, and for Kamasanyu to perform her duty. So this is a breach of the law. But you see, this is the trend. My friends in the opposition don't seem to respect government institutions. Like these fellows were the leaders of FDC were in court when Kamasanyu was attacked. Even if you don't agree with the decision of Kamasanyu, you don't attack her. You appeal. You can grumble, you can quarrel, you appeal the decision. Same thing like happened in Parliament. When there is a debate in Parliament and you are losing the debate, the war in Parliament is not a war of fists. It's a war of ideas. There is a war in Parliament, and that war is a war of ideas, not a war of fists. You don't stand on the table of Parliament and start kicking people around and disgracing Parliament. That's an indication that you are an ignoramus, you don't understand where you are, what you are doing, and what you're supposed to be. You should not be there. You are a wrong element. A member of Parliament should respect Parliament. Somebody who goes to a court of law should respect a court of law. If you go to church and you think what the priest has been saying, or if you're in a mosque and you think what the sheikh is saying is not to agreement, do you attack them? Do you go and say, now you Rwanga or Ntagari, what you are saying is contrary to the Bible, get lost, I'm taking over? No. If you disagree with Ntagari, if you disagree with Bishop Rwanga, you're going to start your own church. If you disagree with who is this gentleman in this man in this Pentecostal? Kayanja. If you disagree with Kayanja, you leave his church. You don't attack him because he's performing his spiritual function. If you think what they are doing is not correct, don't go there. Just don't go there. But if you go to church, if you go to Rubaga, if you go to Namirembe, if you go to Kayanja's cathedral, you have to follow the rules and regulations of those institutions. In like manner, when you are elected a member of Parliament, you have to observe the decorum of Parliament. If you go to court to witness court proceedings, you have to observe the decorum and rules and procedures of the court of law. You don't do your own things. This is anarchy. And we're not going to tolerate anarchy. It's this anarchical behavior that led to the disintegration of our society. If we are not careful, we are going to disintegrate into an anarchical society. And look at the breakdown of law, and order and peace is something very easy. We don't learn our lessons. We don't learn our lessons. We don't seem to learn our lessons. If you are leader of a political party and your supporters behave the way they are supposed to behave, it's your responsibility to restrain them. That's why you are a leader. Leaders are meant to address problems. They are meant to regulate the conduct of their followers. Because if there are no problems, what do we need leaders for? I'm not conversant with what has happened. I must admit. But I would find it irregular for government to try to use the law to convict innocent people. That's not true. You see, there seems to be a problem with our society. All crime has been politicized. People still commit crimes, the political atmosphere notwithstanding. When people commit crimes, they have committed crimes. It's not politics. The courts of law, the legal the institutions of government, the law enforcement officers, apply the law as it is in order to protect society. Apply the law as it is in order to protect society. It's not to punish innocent people. If the law has been broken, it's the responsibility of the law enforcement officers to ensure that society gets justice. And that's why they are taken to court. If they are innocent, they will prove their innocence and they will be at liberty. If they are not, then the law will take effect. Of the accused Miss Dr. Stella Nyanzi, who was charged with the offense of cyber harassment, a person who was part of the people who had gone to attend court, attacked the presiding magistrate, Ms. Gladys Kamasanyu, in the face with a bottle. Thereafter, court attendees became rowdy and various property was vandalized, which will definitely cost the taxpayer a lot of money to replace. The Ministry of Justice and Constitutional Affairs condemns in the strongest terms possible the ugly occurrences that braced the court of an attack on a judicial officer while in the course of her duties. Such attacks are barbaric, regrettable, and should have no place in modern and democratic Uganda today or in the future, because these are reminiscent of the dark ages we've gone through. The laws of Uganda from the 1995 Constitution, Article 128, and the Judicature Act, Section 14, guarantees the independence of the judiciary and also empowers the courts of law to act in conformity with the doctrines of equity. In order to assure independence of the judiciary, all judicial officers should be seen as only mediators between two opposing views and not part of the conflict between the parties. Where an individual or a party doesn't feel satisfied with the decision of court, the law allows appeals to be done way up to the Supreme Court. These are peaceful means that we implore all those who are grieved by lower court decisions to take. Presiding officers should in all circumstances act without fear or favor, affection, or ill will. It's the norm in the same democratic society, and acts of violence such as that we saw in the court last week, through the noise made during the court session, and pelting of bottles at the magistrate, should not be tolerated anywhere near our temples of justice. Unfortunately, this barbaric act has the support of some sections of society involving political party leaders and functionaries who want to advance their cause through unaccepted means under the guise of exercise of their constitutional right, freedom of speech and association. Unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, these leaders were present in court when this dastardly act took place. They neither restrained their supporters nor condemned the act. As the Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs, we call upon Ugandans to defend the Constitution of the Republic, which, among others, calls for the independence of the judiciary by avoiding such unlawful acts of threatening and intimidating judicial officers, even showing disagreement through acts of hooliganism and violence. We shall support all effort of the judiciary to make sure that all judicial officers are free and feel safe and are under no intimidation of any sort or any sort of influence whatsoever while performing their duties, and to make sure that the integrity and independence of the temples of justice is maintained as we pursue justice for all. The security of the judicial officers shall be enhanced. Both the accused persons and the presiding officers should be in court not under the tension of what will happen next. It is the duty of all citizens to respect the rights and freedoms of others as stipulated under Chapter 4 of the 1995 Constitution of the Republic of Uganda. In the hierarchy of the courts, whoever is dissatisfied with the ruling of a court has the right to appeal to a higher court, but not to engage in physical attacks of the presiding officer. This is why the complainant went to court for adjudication and did not take the law into his own hands. Those found responsible for the hooliganism and barbaric acts of attacking the judicial officer and vandalizing court property shall be dealt with sternly in accordance with the law. I thank you for God and my country.